What's up YouTube, this is Shuttle Boy and I'm back with yet another video. Today's video, we got a new sneaker pickup in today. This is a sneaker I'm pretty excited to talk to you guys about. So without further ado, let's get right into it, guys. Alright, so new pickup. I already unboxed this actually, so sorry if this is not super exciting, but I did actually get this as a gift from my girlfriend. Shout out to her. I really appreciate it. It was really nice of her to get me these, and something I've really been excited about because Saucony is one of those brands that's kind of hidden behind the scenes, not really in the forefront of fashion or sneakers, the culture around them. Saucony is just kind of behind the scenes, but it's one of those low-key brands that still does a lot of things right, and this is one of those sneakers that shows you just exactly what I'm talking about with that. As you can see here, we're going to start with the box. Obviously, you guys know how I love to talk about a cool design box here. This box is very reminiscent of how the vintage boxes were. Now, I'm sure this isn't exactly what it looks like back in the day, because this is very much a modernized box as well. But the thing that is really nice and appreciated when it comes to this design is it really has that vintage logo that Saucony has. Now they have a little bit more of a modernized version of this for their current running shoes and stuff. The S logo is a lot more pronounced as an S, while back in the day it was more, I mean, it's supposed to represent a river. So as you can see, it is a little bit less curved and more of a flat line. So I really like how they added this on here, and it's not just the typical box that they use for just their generic shoes. If you just look at the size here, you can just see it has more of the logo here, blank here, and then you have more of it on this side as well. Nothing much more than that, but I still really like it. I really like what they did here. But without further ado, let's get straight to the shoes here. And bang, bang. I really like this sneaker, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys. This is the Saucony Original Jazz Vintage. I am just really liking this shoe, guys, and it's a sneaker that I've really had my eyes on for a really long time. So like I said, this is the Saucony Originals Jazz Vintage. So there's actually a little bit to that naming that actually matters when it comes to picking out a pair of these sneakers. Now there is just the Saucony Original Jazz. So that is a more generic version. Think about with Chuck Taylors. If you have a pair of Chuck Taylors, there is the Chuck All-Stars, the Chuck Taylor All-Stars, and then there's the Chuck 70. Well, what we have here today with us is more in the line of the Chuck 70 when it comes to Saucony Jazz sneakers. So when I say that, that means that this is kind of the more premium version, the more true to its original shape and construction and materials and stuff, where they also have a cheaper model for about $20 less that is just the same model, but it's just not really constructed the same. It's just been cheaper and just more corners are cut throughout the process. So that's what makes sneakers like this appreciative to me, is I really like when they at least offer that option of, say, hey, we know we have some longtime fans that really appreciate the original construction of a sneaker and would really like it to look like what it looked like back when it started. And I really love that. I really love when I see stuff like that, and it's not super noticeable with this sneaker. Like from afar, you wouldn't really be able to tell, but for people like us that really care about the details in sneakers, I think this is something that definitely is going to be up your alley. One of the things, the most notable thing I would say, is the logos that are just represented on this sneaker. Now you can see with the logo on the tongue, it's just a very simplistic logo, but that is really how it looked back in the day. It was just a very generic looking Saucony logo, not the new modern logo, because with the regular Saucony Jazz, for some reason they decided to use their more recent logo on the tongue tag embroidery, which is really odd to me. I don't know why you would do that, because that logo doesn't even, or didn't even exist when the sneaker originally came out. So really odd decision on their part to do that, but I'm really glad they changed it for this model in particular. Then the shape is a little bit different. You can't tell a ton, like I said, from afar. You won't be able to tell exactly, which is just kind of reminiscent of sneakers in the early 80s and like the 70s and stuff. Think about like the Nike Cortez and stuff. This is kind of fitting into that. It's a little bit after that time period. But if you think of that, that's where this is really fitting into. And then here's a look at the bottom as well. Nothing too crazy, but a classic Saucony bottom that I really like. I really like the look of this. I don't even know why. It's really pretty generic, but I really like what they do with it. Just their classic like arrow pattern that they like to do with a lot of their sneakers, and they still kind of do it to this day. I have some Grid 9000s, I believe it's called, with that model. They have something that still really represents that. I know the Aya has that as well. I think the Grid 2000s as well have that, but a lot of sneakers, they try to keep this pattern, which I think is very good for running as well too, because it's more of a forward and backward motion traction pattern. It's not a side to side. And another thing that I noticed with this, which I found very interesting, is the insole. Now, I'm actually going to take out the insole so you can see it a little bit better, but here is the insole here. We actually have the original design of the insole. I don't know if this is exactly the original, but much like the Chuck 70, I mean, Chuck Taylor's originated before 1970, but they're basing it off of the 70s time period. I think this is very much in line with that, is they're basing it off of when a time period that people most remember buying Saucony Jazz sneakers. So this is the insole that came out during that time period, and I really like it. Just the vintage logo all over print. Nothing crazy, but I like how it looks. And one thing to note with this, it's not a super crazy thick insole, but I really like what they did with the back here. They added a little crash pad here, which is really nice for when you're just striking with your heel when you're walking. And it has a decent amount of cushion to it. You can actually see how they just kind of added it. It's kind of welded to the top here. See, I could really actually just rip it off right here because it's just kind of falling towards that top part, but that's not going to be an issue when you're wearing it. But just really cool to see stuff like that, and that they actually added that in there just to make it a little bit more comfortable. And last but not least, as far as differences that I want to talk about here, is colorways. Colorways for the vintage are supposedly colorways that were out when these came out originally. Now they do a lot of weird colorways now with the regular original, but with the vintage one, it's supposed to be vintage colorways. And I'm really liking this colorway I have here with the mustard yellow color. Not something I really have much of in my collection as far as this colorway goes, and that's what I really like about this. This is a really good everyday kind of shoe. Goes with a lot. I know you might not be wearing a lot of yellow in general, and I don't wear a ton of yellow either, but I think this just, the shade of this yellow really works with a lot of things, and that's what I really appreciate with this. Is another thing with like the silver hit on the logo, which is in leather, while the rest of the shoe is pretty much a suede and a nylon. It just looks really nice. It just goes with a lot, especially with the white tongue as well. That just kind of breaks it up and matches with the white laces as well. But that's pretty much it as far as the sneaker goes, guys. There's a couple other little details here, but nothing super crazy as far as design goes. All in all though, I gotta say, I'm really happy with this shoe. I've worn it a ton since I've gotten it, and I just really appreciate the sneaker for what it is. It is nothing crazy, obviously. It's very simplistic in design, but I think that's what makes this great, is that it really works with anything. And it has a lot of history behind it, and it still is very unique because it's coming from a brand that isn't as well known as a Nike or an Adidas. So that's pretty much all I gotta say with this sneaker, guys. Let me know down below what you're thinking about this sneaker, or if you plan on picking up anything like this in the near future. I would really like to hear that. And please hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video, guys, and please subscribe if you haven't already for more golf wing, more sneakers, more clothing, more Shuttle Boy. And this is Shuttle Boy, guys. I'm out, guys. Peace.